All right, guys, welcome to Better Globally. Another day, another episode, another very special guest, Sal Greco. Thank you for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Ben. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be with a day in Miami.
Yeah, thank you to A Day in Miami for being the media sponsor over here. So, Sal, tell me real quick for the viewers as well. I already got to know you a little bit. Who is Sal Greco? Just give us a brief introduction.
Sal Greco is a Sicilian-American, proud of it. I'm a guy that was born in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, so I'm a Brooklyn guy. And I'm a 14-year veteran of the NYPD. I was there. I had an unblemished record. I was a rough and tumble kind of guy on the job where made a lot of arrests, but apparently someone in the NYPD was irked at my politics and who I'm friends with, and that's why I was falsely terminated in my estimation from the NYPD, and that's why I'm in a current litigation against the NYPD and the city of New York. But I don't let that deter me.
Yeah, we're going to touch on this case briefly. But before we get into that, just tell me, I think it's a big decision. Why did you decide to become a police officer?
Well, I want to be a police officer. I think when I was younger, I really wanted to be in the FBI. I wanted to be a federal agent. And I had family that was in that part. They were in the FBI and the feds. And they told me, I don't know if you really want to go down this route. I was always one that hung around my dad a lot. And my dad was, he worked for a food distributor.
Yeah.
So that's how I know a lot of these pizzerias and restaurants up and down the East Coast. So I was more of let's say a man about town, like a people's kind of guy. And that's how I grew up. And federal agents are kind of like, I wouldn't say they're people's people. They're more of they're kind of like separated from things, which is what I've learned in the NYPD when I was a cop. I was the same way. You learn to like almost separate yourself. You kind of like the word is detached. And I'm more of a people's kind of guy where I need to be around people to know what's going on, how people are doing, how they feel about things, because that's how you get a grasp on things. So I wanted to be a federal agent, and that I never really went down that route. I ended up, somebody close to me says, hey, I became a cop. What do you think?
Yeah.
They spent 6 months on the job. Then they were telling me what they were doing day to day. And they says, why don't you apply? And ultimately, that's what I did. And then I think 6 months after I applied, they called me to come to the police academy.
How old were you when you started?
I was 26 when I first got into the police department. I should have been in at 25, but there was a little glitch with the paperwork, we'll say.
Yeah.
And but I was 26 when I first got on the job.
Okay, so you said that you wanted to work as a police officer instead of working like as a federal agent, just because of this human connection.
You'll always have a little bit of detachment, whether you're a cop or federal agent or anything in law enforcement. It just happens because it's a crazy kind of life almost. You're always 24/7 on the go. You're always a cop 24/7. You're always a federal agent 24/7. So, who you hang around and what you're doing could affect you. You could also, end up that you get terminated for stuff like that. What you're doing and who you're around. So you're always like, it's almost like a detached life where the people you once knew when you were a normal guy, maybe you can't speak to them or you can't be around them because you're worried. Is your job going to say anything about it? So you have that aspect, and then you're going to see things in your career you may or may not affect you. You may see people die in front of you. You may have to go to a crime scene. You might have to guard a dead body. You might have to guard someone that is absolutely reprehensible, that committed murder or whatever. You have to guard this person and protect this person from getting attacked by a mob of people that want to do something to this guy because of what they did. You're going to go through many different avenues when you're in this. And sometimes what you sign up for and what you think you're about to enter is not what you think. And it actually is either worse or better than what you expect. So policing, I think the life of a cop is probably more fun than, let's say, the life of a federal agent.
Yeah.
I just thought about federal agents all the time because I always saw them as having big cases versus a cop. but cops do have big cases also. But as a kid growing up, you see, the federal agents take out all the big bad guys, and hate to say it, and today it's become completely politicized. The whole thing is politicized. It's all about politics.
Yep, unfortunately it is. But I mean, I don't think there's much we can do about it now, but it's okay.
Depends who you vote for.
Oh, that too. So tell me, how did your expectations change? So, for example, when you before you became a cop and after you became a cop, how those like your expectations and reality, how did those work together? In a sense of, did you expect something else from the job, and then when you got on the actual job, or like, oh damn, I didn't expect this to be like that.
I guess when I first got on, I wanted to make a difference, which I think I did. But as time goes on, you realize, even the job itself is highly political. And the people you might ruffle feathers with are not just the people in the street. It's actually the cops that work with you. Yeah. This guy is jealous of that guy. Joe doesn't like John. If you do something that is wrong with John, Joe is going to try and do something even worse and backstab you by going to a boss. It's like, it's high school. That's what, I can't describe it better than that. Welcome back to high school, only you're 27, 28 years old. And you're like, what the hell did I get myself involved in? I'm there to be almost like a Batman, like a vigilante. Like, I just want to go out there. I know who I have to go after, these bad guys. I'm even humane in how I go about it, but I don't need all this supervision and all this crazy stuff. Like, me personally, here are the ground rules. Here's a gray shaded areas. Here's a gray shaded areas. And I work in between this. I won't go past the gray shaded areas, just like Batman.
Yeah.
But if you're going to come to me, we're worried about how you look. We're worried about the way your shoes or they shine. We're worried about, what you ate, you're eating in uniform, all this kind of crazy stuff. Dude, just let me go out there. I'm going to lock someone up and come back. Like, that's the job, right? Or is it, I don't know, what exactly are you expecting from me? Because that's what I thought going in, and then you see how things really are. So that's kind of like, and you have to, one thing you got to learn in life, and I learned it very well, no matter if it's in, your life, your job, politics, you have to adapt. You have to be quick on your feet, which sometimes people had a problem with me about that because I'm very quick on my feet.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much, if I have to change direction, I'll do it because that's how I was taught. And, not that I was taught, but how I learned as a cop. You have to be quick on your feet because a couple of seconds could be your life or some poor innocent civilian's life. So you have to be quick on your feet. That's one thing the NYPD taught me.
Okay, makes sense. On the In Miami podcast, you mentioned that you beat the record for like the most amount of arrests in the DWI.
Yes.
So what do you think was the key to beat those records? And you did it also for 2 years straight, right?
Yeah, for 2 years straight, I held the most arrests for an individual officer for a DWI arrest. So what I would do is, I was in a unit that we focused on, drunk drivers. We wanted to pull as many drunk drivers off the street as we could. It's a common common problem out there. If you're driving and, you had something to drink, maybe you shouldn't drive. Maybe you should really think about, the repercussions of something like that. People, I have a cousin that he was a cop and he passed away because a drunk driver hit him head on the highway in South Florida down here. So, it's not something that, I'm looking at it. Oh, you had a drink. If you had a drink, don't drive. This is something that I find inexcusable. And I always have, because listen, have I had alcohol? Yes. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. Do I drink it now? No. Have I ever really drank a lot of it? No. I'm not one to abuse this, and I'm not a fan of alcohol. And I understand people do it socially, but that's why I'll have a bottle of water or something. So this is not something I really like. I'm not going to judge somebody for it, but drinking and driving is a big thing. So when we get back to how I had the number was, I used to lock up anywhere between at least 10 or 12 people for DWI individually inside of 1 quarter, which is 3 months out of the year. Every 3 months is a quarter. There's 4 quarters in a year, we'll say. So that's how I ended up. But I had over 40 in 1 year and close to 40 in another. So you're almost averaging one every week and a half, we'll say.
Yeah.
But there were weeks where you got 4. I might have 4 in a row, 4 nights in a row with one. So this was something that we, A, took pride in as a unit. B, I went out there and said, I'm going to set an individual goal, because I'm not just going to sit here and be in some unit where I'm just going to sit at a desk, put my feet up in the air and say, this is great to get paid to do nothing. Because I know guys that like to do that also, and that wasn't me. If I sat on the desk and I wasn't processing an arrest, then you're right. I'm sitting on the desk because I had too much overtime. Because that's another thing, is you reach a cap, like a point where if you make 130 hours in a quarter, they don't want you going out there making any more arrests or getting involved in anything, because that means you'll be over that number and you'll end up on a list of the highest earned officers, and they don't want that. They want everyone to at least stay in the same range. So 130 hours was the cap. And sometimes if you get that in 1 week, you're not working the other 11 weeks of the quarter. I mean, that's how it worked. So this was something I took pride in. I also did it as a regular cop when I wasn't in a unit, but I finished, I believe, 2nd or 3rd that year.
That's so impressive.
I know, it was in Brooklyn. I had like 47, some crazy number. And I was, at that time, answering radio runs also. That means if you call 911, I might have to respond to that. So how do I make an arrest when I have to do that and this?
Yeah.
And in the unit, it was just, I'm just going for DWIs. There were other guys out there. That's why we had a unit, because it was a DWI enforcement unit in the traffic division of NYPD. So I did it for 2 years straight. Me and my partner actually were 1 and 1A or 1 and 3. As a unit, as a duo, we were number 1. So that was something
like
I took.
Batman and Robin.
Yeah, we took pride in it. My partner was a little more like, listen, just as long as I get to 130 hours, I'm happy. But we were locking up some. Okay, I mean, they're just drunk people. And then there was some really drunk people.
Yeah.
Some people, and we ended up in the court. I never lost a case in the courtroom. So everyone was convicted of it. I made sure that every I got dotted, every T got crossed. That's how you have to be. And also, I was one that no matter, cops should think like this. I always thought like a lawyer. So it's very hard to do, but as you're affecting an arrest and you're arresting someone or you're pulling someone over, you need to think like a lawyer. So if you're in a courtroom, the lawyer, the defendant's going to turn around and go, well, officer, in my case, Officer Greco, so you saw my client do X, Y, Z. You stated in your paperwork X, Y, Z. So every move I made, I always wanted to be thinking like, what if I was asked this? What if I'm asked that? And that's how I operated. And that's why you didn't see, if there was a human error, there could have been 1 or 2 or 3 in my career, but there was never anything on the table, because that's how it is when you arrest someone. An officer's mistakes are what the defense attorney will, zone in on and say, okay, we're going to go with this angle. There's something, if there's a slight error, not guilty. Any reasonable doubt. That's what it takes. There never was one with mine. Before the body camera and with the body cameras actually helped out in the arrest situation. So that's something I took pride in, but I never got an award for that, or no one ever.
We'll get you a trophy.
Yeah,
don't
nobody
worry.
nobody ever said, Mr. Greco, you're leading the. I only learned of this because by the numbers you could pull them up, and it showed I was the number 1. So it was something that, it was good while it lasted. Yeah. I went out and took pride in what I did, and the citizens of New York City could say, and they put their head on the pillow knowing at night that what they nicknamed me at the time in Brooklyn, they called me El Diablo, was out there trying to look for the DWIs and trying to take these guys off the street.
That's awesome. Okay, so what you mentioned that thinking like a lawyer. Okay, what if they ask me this? I can see how valuable it could be, because you're just preparing yourself. Like, I know what they're gonna ask, so I'm gonna make sure to prevent that and not gonna make it happen.
Exactly. It's almost like repetition too. So when you're
that too.
When you're used to the same thing, you keep, it's the same paperwork. It's the same. So you know how to do this, but you remember you cannot have, even slightest slip up on anything. You wrote one word wrong. You said that, when you write on there at TPO AO, so that means at time, place of occurrence, AO, arresting officer states, yeah, I observed whatever the license plate. So you say the license plate of a car. If that license plate is off one number, there's an error. Uh-oh, here we go. Here
Not
the
guilty.
defense could say, that's not what my client was driving. You understand? So you need to make sure little things like that. Leave no crumbs on the table. And while you're in the street, it's also important. When you're in someone's vehicle, now remember, you have to voucher this vehicle or really want to release this vehicle back to someone since the defendant's not the owner. When you're looking through the vehicle, you have to make sure everything's documented, what you're doing, because he could state, or the defendant could state you took something out of the car. May or may not be true, but believe me, with an overzealous civilian complaint review board and these clowns in internal affairs who don't do anything all day and need a case to, justify their existence, somebody makes a claim, they're going to look to hang you. So you have to be dotting your I's and crossing your T's. I made it all those years. I have 320 arrests. You don't see anything on my record. There's nothing there. And I'm sure some of the underlings in the NYPD that were desperately trying to find anything they could were probably looking at it saying, how did this guy get this far and there's nothing there? There's just nothing there. The more they looked at it, there was nothing there. There's nothing there as far as my work. It was excellent. By all standards, I shouldn't have made it that far. All those arrests, I should have been probably sued 20, 30 times if you look at the way they sue people today. But there's nothing there because I always went through things meticulously. In fact, the DA's office stated that they said, we like that you work are very meticulous and everything on there is almost perfect. It's just unheard of how you're very meticulous about it. And that's how I prided myself on things. That if you're going to be serious about something, that's how it has to be. And I took my work very serious.
Okay. So tell me, what was like the key in the sense of finding those arrests? Is it like a specific area? Was it a specific time? Or you were, with your experience, you were able to tell, okay, this guy looks a little suspicious. Let me follow him. And then you see, I don't know, he starts crossing the lane and okay, he's probably drunk. Let me pull him over.
I tell you, in the time period when I was a cop, number one thing I would always look for is the area. The area you have to look at, are you frequenting? Are there nightclubs? Are there lounges? Is this the route you would take to go from the lounge to the highway? Most drunk drivers, I've realized that a lot of them had a propensity of getting caught near tunnels, bridges, and close to a nightclub, leaving or going in, like either they're leaving the nightclub or they're parking to get to the nightclub. One that was the to catch somebody who was just on a long drive home or whatever. That was not, that wasn't as common as per se somebody who was parking a car, trying to get into the nightclub. So exits and entrances off tunnels and bridges seem to be the easiest route. That's where you catch people that are drunk. I don't know why. That was the numbers were high when it came to that. So I think that's where I would hover around. And when I was in Brooklyn, I worked in Brooklyn and Coney Island or in Crown Heights, hovering around the lounges were the easy. If you're just in the area, there's a high propensity you're gonna get a drunk driver. Just because the numbers at night, anything after midnight, as Tom Coughlin, coach of the Giants, once said, there is nothing after midnight that is good that comes about. Anything good after midnight. So that was like that was a term I used to use. After midnight, Tom Coughlin used to say, nothing good happens after midnight. So if you're driving right after midnight, there's a high propensity that person may be drunk.
Okay, makes sense. So tell me, how many times have you had the gun pointed at you?
There were a couple of times that there were rounds fired in and around me, per se. There was an incident where somebody was firing at someone else and when I was a rookie, and this person took off with this gun in their hands, and then as they were entering a building, threw it up on the, I believe it was like I don't know if it was a windowsill or somewhere was on top of where the door was. They eventually got the gun. The gun was in a bag. So they threw it, it was thrown in a bag or something on top. He ran into the facility, and the other officer, who was a lot quicker than me, he chased him and actually caught him. So that was one incident, and I believe they were trying to shoot at one of their rivals. So that's how it makes this very dangerous. So you could just be standing there, and this was a big thing in the NYPD under Ray Kelly. He had what was called Impact, and in Impact, he would post foot posts in different areas on different corners of the street, which on a city block in New York, there could be a lot of crimes that they take on a city block, or there could be crimes they take regarding, grand larcenies, things like that. So that's what it's presence that deters crime. That was Ray Kelly's terminology, which was pretty effective.
Presence, what do you mean?
So if the likelihood of somebody trying to take a car or enter a house and commit a burglary or, assault someone, the propensity of that with a cop standing there is not going to be the same as if there's nobody standing there. That was, this was at a time where people respected cops. You were still living under a, somewhat of a law being enforced, and there was still district attorneys that were following the law. That's not the New York City of today. But at that time, that was what was going on. That was the thought process. So when you're standing there in a corner like we were, and we weren't congregating. It's just there was two cops stationed there, standing in one corner. I was in another corner with another cop, and then some guy is just firing at some guy right behind you, that his rival, the two rival gangs. That might happen, and this was the situation we were all, boggled down with, we'll say. And that incident happened. That was one incident. There was another incident, but this guy was shooting. They were shooting from a rooftop that no one could ever finger where this was. You kept hearing bullets being fired up into the sky, and then you would hear somewhere around you, bing, bing, it would land. So they never caught this person. They had aviation up. They had the helicopter up. But it was someone that was on a rooftop somewhere in a high rise in Coney Island that was just firing, probably up in the sky, and then a bullet would. Remember, if you shoot up in the sky, that bullet comes down. Hopefully, it doesn't come down on somebody, because it can still kill you. But that nobody told this character, whoever it was.
Have you had a situation that made you want to say, "Nah, this is not for me. I'm quitting this. I don't want to risk my life. I don't want to get shot. I have to reconsider my choice"?
I'll tell you, there's a lot of times I took one thing. I don't know why it was, but there was a lot of times I would go to work and say, I never cared if I went home or not, because I was devoted to making people feel safe and saying, when I go to work every night, I have to make sure that I know that I made a difference, meaning somebody was in handcuffs. That means I took somebody that was bad off the street, and then everybody could sleep well, knowing that I did this, that I'm out there defending them. They're sleeping, I'm awake, and I'm putting away guys that, while they're sleeping, want to come and do something to them. Or maybe they want to drive drunk and go run over someone that belongs to their family. Some poor family members walking the street. Here's the guy that had 5 beers, doesn't know any better, hits him and just keeps going, because that's happened too. And, so I always had that. I used to almost go home and I used to say to the cops, I don't really care if I sign out. And people thought it was crazy. And I was like that for a few years. And then I started, becoming more of a veteran, going, what, maybe you should take a step back and say, what, I don't know about, live free or die hard mentality. It's more of okay, let's pick our spots. We'll find when we have to go, but, fine. But when it's time to go home, just go home. Don't sit around saying, I want to stay out there 24/7, because, that's not what you're supposed to do. And I was doing that for a little bit of time when I first was an officer.
So what do you think kept you going in those moments? Was it always the thought that I'm making a difference? I'm locking up the guys that could potentially kill someone's family or, drunk
Yeah.
drive?
As a cop, I got to tell you, I know people love going to casinos, right? You go to a casino because you get a rush, right? You're throwing it,
Yeah.
you're gambling, right? Some people lose their shirt. Other people's have put their mortgages down, crazy stories over the years. My rush was being in the street. It's an adrenaline rush. You're out there and, when I was a rookie, I was on a rooftop with binoculars looking down saying, look at that. Look what that guy's doing. You know what? I jumped 6 rooftops to catch one guy. I thought he was dealing drugs. He was actually doing what was called a 3-card Monte. He was gambling, which is illegal at that time. And it was made legal the very next day. That was the best part. That rule that they had was made legal the day after I made that arrest. So, but I mean, like that kind of stuff, I had a adrenaline rush. You're out there and, you're doing all these things and it's like, you're like a guy. You're kind of like the Predator in the movie, the fictional movie, The Predator. Predator would run around and his trophies would be the skulls of the people that he conquered. He was kind of like a hunter and he was hunting whether it was humans. Eventually find out it was the aliens from the movie Alien. And I viewed it almost the same way. It's like each person is like a notch on your belt of you have an arrest, you took this person. And then the other part is you try to correct their course, meaning this guy necessarily isn't a gang member. This guy necessarily isn't a really bad guy. You're correcting his course. Because once he goes through this, chances are he won't drive drunk again. Chances are he won't be gambling again. I mean, just be smart about your life and you won't end up. So I'm a course corrector as well.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you get the rush of you caught somebody doing something they shouldn't have. And now you get to be the guy that you're the bearer of bad news almost, and you correct the course. And I took pride in doing this. And so that's what it was. And I didn't take pleasure in ruining anybody's day or their life. It is what it is. You have to be the bearer of bad news,
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. And like, there's definitely a good way to think about it that you are correcting their course because you know that
Yes.
after you catch them, they're less likely to do whatever they did, whatever drunk driving, gambling, shooting, whatever.
Yeah.
Some people just need like this, they need to see the reality. And like until you stop them, they live in a dream. They don't really care. But then reality hits and they have to.
And you want to say, the ideal day is actually if you go out there and you come up empty handed because you never want to see, there shouldn't be any crime reason. If things were perfect, everyone would just get along and everything will be normal. But, as you could tell every day, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
And at this time when I was a cop, and I was out in the street, bringing something back, as long as you're not fabricating it either, because I'm a big believer, you don't do that. You don't create something that didn't exist, kind of like what you see in these political prosecutions. I'm not like that. I'm for real crime, doing something bad, and you have to affect their action. That's your job. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be protecting people, not throwing people in a witch hunt. And then we're going to, I don't like Joe. I'm going to bring him in. I'm going to find something on him. That's what they're kind of doing today. I don't believe in that. So that's where things have gone south in the world of policing today. And I wasn't a big believer in that. I always said, we have to catch what's really going on. We have to do what's really going on or stop that from happening, whether it's corrective course, which is writing a summons. People don't like summonses, but you know what? You're not going to be lighting that fire and singing Kumbaya and smoking weed in that park that's, 10 feet from a whole row of houses where people can't sleep because they're hearing you play your music and they could smell your weed in their house with their doors locked and their windows closed. That is something that you have to correct because that little scene becomes 5 people. Next night becomes 10, becomes 15. Before you know, there's a mini concert. Then the next part they're going to fight each other because they're drinking. Once 2 guys drink, they start yelling at each other. They're going to assault each other. Before you know it, there's going to be a guy with a knife. This is what you try to correct. That's what Broken Windows was about. You're correcting course. We're not targeting people because of their race or their ethnicity. It's, I don't know how many people are here. I don't really care where they're from or who they are. They don't belong here. Here's a row of houses. This is a community. You're a park right across the street. What are you doing in a park that's closed after 9 p.m. doing these illicit things that affect how these people go about their daily business? Because they have work in the morning. I mean, unless you want to pay and to own their house, then you could do what you want. But these people have a life to live. You don't belong here. You don't even live in a neighborhood. These guys will come from different neighborhoods to go do this. This is like one, a corrective course of action here. There's other areas. They would go to the other side of the beach. There's a beach in Coney Island, and people would be there and just enjoying themselves, just standing there, and it's after 9 o'clock, and then here comes the criminals. Now they come in and they try to rob the guy or something. They're casing the guy. They don't belong on the beach. I understand this guy doesn't belong on the beach, but neither does a crew of you guys we know who you are because you're always in and out of the precinct. You're always getting arrested. And now you're coming here because you're looking to prey on this one poor guy who's not from the area. He's just there visiting. And here you come trying to, you're gonna set this guy up for a crime. These are the kind of things that would go on. These are the things we try to correct course. This is how broken windows work. You write a summons that stops this from happening. You write a summons that'll deter this guy from doing it again. He'll hopefully tell his boys not to do this. And that's how it kind of worked. Politically, some people took this the other route to say, broken windows, it's all about race and ethnicity, and it's not. Anything can be used in any direction in life. If I want to use something in a destructive manner, I can. So was this used at certain points that may look like that by certain individuals? Of course. But as far as me personally, and the people I work with, we used it as a course correction device. You're not supposed to be on the beach. We're going to write you for that summons. You can't leave your car unattended because if I don't write you this summons, just like a week later, somebody would leave their car unattended and they stole it. They took this guy. Somebody went in this guy's car and took the car. And I don't even know if that classifies as a GLA, which is a grand larceny auto, because you basically left your keys in ignition with the car running. I mean, these are the kind of stories you don't hear that were happening. So broken windows stops that. You write this guy a summons. He'll get upset, but he'll never do that again. So that the next incident that I tell you that just happened won't happen. Because there was a guy casing that area saying, I'm going to wait for the wrong guy to leave the key. And he took the car. And it happened. It really did happen. He could actually, I remember when it happened, I just couldn't believe it.
You're like predicting the future, basically.
Yeah, you want to stop that. You want to stop the worst possible thing from happening. And that's one of the course reaction. So you have to correct the course by reacting to it before it happens. So that was how we handled it. We're saying, look, the car, you leave the car on, you're going to get a summons. That's it. Because if you leave the car unattended, this can happen. And then it finally started happening. There were actual guys that were watching us and watching these people leave the car unattended. It's just, it's crazy. And that's all you're doing with broken windows. It's not used. It's supposed to be used in the manner I'm explaining to you, not by, I'm stopping this guy because of his ethnicity or his race. It was never about that.
Got it. So tell me, what was your favorite part about being a cop?
I guess the thrill. Like I said, it was a rush. You missed the adrenaline rush. I've been to casinos. I don't even care what goes on there. But when you're in that street, and it's still to this day, I get that. I'm in the car and I'm getting those flashbacks. And when I pulled the guy over and you knew he was drunk, and now you got one. Like I had that feel, or chasing after somebody that did something. I had a guy that took something out of the car and he started running, and I'm a gym guy. I'm in the gym every day, and I was a runner. So I chased after this guy, and I caught him, and he took whatever it is out of the car. Didn't even belong to him. So these are things that you miss, that action, that thrill. You don't have it anymore. I have to kind of like find other ways around it. Politics is fun. Like politics could be fun, right? But politics, as my friend Roger Stone says, politics is theater for the ugly. And I'm not ugly. At least I don't think I am. People say I look like a certain wrestler. So I don't know if politics is the exact arena I want to be in. I'm just a kind of guy who likes to throw his hat in different things and get involved in many different things, as I like being around people, like I said. But the NYPD, I miss the thrill of the street because I was always a street guy. I liked being out there. I liked people. I would go to like my friend's restaurant, so I would hang out and have an espresso at my friend's place. And then on the way out, I caught a drunk driver. It's happened many times. Like that also happened like just by chance. So these are things you miss. People, you did have a lot of people that liked you. They would come up to you. That's all gone now. You know, that was the thrill of that time period as a job. As far as today, though, I wouldn't want to be in that uniform. Right now, it's really, really getting ugly in New York City. It's really political. I came from a time where it wasn't as political and it was still fun to do these, you know, be a cop. Now, I don't know. I'd probably tell you, maybe you're better off being a janitor.
That's a big switch, though.
Yeah.
So
Quieter.
So now, on the other hand, what was your least favorite part, or like the hardest part of being a cop?
The hardest part of being a cop is you have to be on your toes 24/7. And I'm just not saying that because your life matters. Whether, you know, your life, it could change in a blink of an eye. It only takes a couple of seconds for somebody to do something to you, shoot you. The chances of that, though, when I was on the job, were not as high as, per se, the cop next to you making ridiculous allegations against you or somebody you know. Because this seems to be the worst part of being a cop is not the ammo that you're going to take in the street from some perpetrator, some animal in the street. That you expect. You don't expect the firing from the inside from your own people. That's what I was victimized of. If it wasn't for somebody writing a fugazi letter, because that's what it is, and you're stating that I'm working as security, which I wasn't, and there's never been proof of this to this day. There still isn't, because I never was, and that I wanted to have a civil war in this country, which was another thing. They wrote in a blank letter. There's nobody's name on it. Whoever did that, the second letter, the first letter I know the cop. The second one was a blank letter. I mean, look, this is definitely someone that's inside that little circle of whoever it was that didn't like it. If you don't want to put your name to something, or if you put your name to something and it's found to be false, you should be held criminally liable for this. If you have a problem with someone, just go up to a man-to-man, face-to-face. Don't be running to internal affairs or saying this guy threatened me. You're the big bully, be a man. That's how things were. But now in today's world, I don't know, because you see people with green hair, purple hair, people that are I mean, some of these guys, I don't know if they should have been a cop or they should have ever applied to be a cop. And then you see that also in the street, where you see the same cast of characters doing the same thing in the street, as well as being on the job. So it's a different world. And I'm kind of like a dinosaur at this point, you know, the way I think and the way I handled business. And I see this now, and I'm like, I don't know how I made it. I made it, and of all the crazy things, I got terminated for some fugazi thing that literally every cop has either done, been involved around, or right now you currently have the entire upper brass doing it 24/7 in your face. You're saying that you're hanging out with somebody that A, they don't like, B, likely to have engaged in criminal activity. I mean, that's just a broad brush. That could be anyone. I could say, here, Ben, I think, can commit a crime. Therefore, Officer Joe shouldn't be hanging around Ben because I believe, not you, I believe he could be perpetrating a crime in the future. What is that about? See, and that's what I'm saying. It's all arbitrary rules. I mean, this is not, and they apply in different ways, and now everything's become political. So God forbid if it's anything political involved, you're going to get fried. I mean, this is, you know, the politics of it is just as bad as the regular politics you see on television with politicians. That's the NYPD now. That part I don't miss. That's the part you want to stay away from.
recently I think I read on Twitter that it always used to be innocent until proven guilty. But I think now it's changed. So now it's guilty until proven innocent. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that depending on who the person is, because once again, it's arbitrary.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know the only person that is guilty and has to prove they're innocent is President Donald Trump, would be the first person that comes to mind. He's guilty until proven innocent. According to anyone, the majority of these people on X, which is Twitter, anybody in the media, you go CBS, NBC, ABC, even Fox News, they'll all jump on the fact they all think Trump is guilty of something. You're guilty of something. He's guilty of something. He's guilty. So they're just going to throw all these indictments on him until something, whatever it is, can possibly stick. You'll stack the courts. The courts are all political. The judges are all politically appointed. They're all friends and they're hobnobbing with certain lawyers. Those lawyers are in the Justice Department. They work under the president now, Joe Biden. Everything is highly partisan. I mean, this is not what this country was built on. I would think that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin, they're all rolling in their graves, seeing that they were trying to prevent. They saw this coming all those years ago and set all these rules and put all these rules in play so that this wouldn't happen. And yet these guys are finding a way to subvert this and do that. And they just sometimes outright just trampling on all these rights and all these rules and laws that they were implemented forever. They're just trampling on and saying, well, we're the law. And we've seen this in other countries, correct? We've seen them in, I don't know, Soviet Union, Cuba, recently Venezuela. These are countries that are coming from a communist background, and that's what you're kind of seeing today. It seems very communistic to say, show me the man, I'll show you the crime, because that's what they're doing with one person in particular who's just nonstop being thrown out there that this person is guilty, but what have we really found?
Yeah.
You know?
Unfortunately, it's not just Donald Trump. You know, recently there has been some allegations for Russell Brand or like Andrew Tate. They all
Already.
the allegations of rape that happened like 10 years ago, and suddenly now when they speak against the system, suddenly everything comes out. So
Yeah.
it's ridiculous the times we live in. So the next question is, do you think or how we could change it, or do you think it's too deeply entrenched in the system right now that it's impossible, that we gotta stop becoming so political and start thinking like rationally?
That's hard to say because it's like, how does society, what direction we're going? Because, you know, the laws of allegations are how things go. I mean, there's like, there's a rule, there's like a length of how long you have to actually prosecute crimes. So the statute of limitations, how does this work? I mean, I've been out there where there's legit cases of a sexual assault, and then there's the fugazi sexual assaults, but nobody ever goes after anybody for that. So nobody wants to put their name to certain things either. And I'm always one where if something just happened, just say it. I'm going to tell you, like, I'm fighting Eric Adams, the New York City mayor, and the entire New York City Police Department and the city of New York, right? I'm one person. But if I was to take the stance of I can't win, I'm just one person, I can't, then it's over before it starts. But I'm doing just as much trying to punch them in the face kind of politically the way they were doing with me that they do to others. And you have to stand up to the bully. That's the whole point. So you can't be afraid that either A, defend yourself, or B, go on the attack. So if you are a victim of a crime, by all means, you should just come out immediately. Don't be afraid of this guy is a chief, that guy is a mayor. If you're going to go down and you're going to lose, or God forbid something happens to you, go down swinging right there on the spot. I was a victim of this crime. This happened today, whatever. This person touched me. It was yesterday. Do it right there. Don't wait. If you're waiting 10 years from now, I don't even know if that would be a question of whether or not it happened. This could be, that could be a question of motive. because you're saying this happened 10 years ago. I mean, this is you're clouding and muddying up the waters, I'm saying, versus right away, just say it. Because then that would mean, you're saying that something happened 10 years ago and it might be a motive, or 15 years ago. Or in, once again, Donald Trump's case, somebody says something happened 40 years ago. I mean, at this point,
Who remembers that?
yeah, I could say as a 40 year or whatever, 30 years ago, somebody did something to me to hurt my feelings. Can I charge this? I mean, like, that's what I'm talking about. And that's, the best way for me to describe it is, especially because I was a cop and I know all these lawyers, if something happened to you, say it right away. Don't waste any time. And I understand women are afraid because you're fighting a power structure. You know what? Make that allegation, do what you have to do, get it on paper, and then you work from there. Even if this police department, let's say, are complicit in doing nothing, now you have something to work on personally to sue someone and go after this individual. But if you do nothing and wait 10 years, it's like, I don't know, you're kind of muddy. It looks like, what is your motive? What was the motive of that? And there might be cases that's happened, and maybe Russell Brand is, I don't know. Could this be true? Could it not be true? You got to wait till it pans out. It seems very suspicious. I would say going forward, is anyone out there that was a victim or is a victim, do not be afraid to right away say something. Because if you don't, you end up in this scenario like this right here, Russell Brand, where they'll say, what is the motive for this person or these 5 victims that are alleged? Nobody knows their name. I mean, that's another thing.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother thing. So you can't be afraid to put your name to it. If you're going to say something, put your name to it. We're not, what are you afraid of, conspiracy theories? You think someone's going to come out from a bush and do a JFK on you? I mean, like you got to you can't be afraid. That's what I'm trying to say. You can't be afraid to do something. Look, I filed a complaint yesterday against Eric Adams, his police commissioner, and his deputy mayor of communications. He once again used his police department for a political agenda. They were on X, on their social media, posting political videos of Eric Adams stating how his zoning for housing, the way he wants it done, that wants it passed. So it's a political agenda of his, is now being front and center in the NYPD. Now, Ben, that violates the New York City Police Patrol Guide, what they terminated me for. They said that I violated it and I got terminated. Well, Ed Caban, the police commissioner, is letting his police department, he's ordering them, whether it's him, whether it's Fabian Levy, his deputy mayor of communications, or Eric Adams himself, is using public servants to further his political agenda. That's a violation of the patrol guide. It's also a violation of the New York City Charter, Chapter 68, subparagraph 9, sections A and B, where it states very clearly, no public official shall order or coerce another public servant or anyone underneath them to push a political agenda. Can't be afraid to make that. You can't be afraid to make that complaint. I made it very public. That was me that did it. So that should be your example. Don't be afraid. You see something, jump on it. No hesitation and no fear. Your enemy, your proponents, they bank on your fear. They work off of your fear. He's afraid, so we could push him around. That's how they operate. So don't be afraid of making a claim if it's true and putting your name on it. That's all I'm saying. Or you're going to end up in a scenario like these women with Russell Brand and Andrew Tate. You don't even know who they are or what's going on there or what's the motive.
Yeah. I mean, some people, especially the people in power, it seems like they don't play by the rules that they made or are made for them.
Yeah. I that's the thing. And I'm a big one rule for all, right? Can only be one standard, which kind of applies to my situation. It can only be one standard. And again, it's like you can't muddy the waters by saying you don't you can't muddy the waters saying something happened all these years ago and you're coming out now. Why? I remember years ago, when the mob was around, people were afraid to say things. And now, 30 years later, you have a bunch of different people now. Who was an informant? And they're making all kinds of accusations. That now the waters are very muddy because you don't know what's true or not. Where were these
Yep.
guys back then? And of course, there's always motives. So you could say this guy said whatever he said to not go to prison. This guy said what he had to say, so he didn't go to prison. And he's muddying the waters with all these allegations and claims and all this crazy stuff. So that's what I'm saying with allegations and how they take it. I know the media love to jump on. We don't like Russell Brand, so we're going to run with this. It could turn out to be true. It's just that if this allegation occurred back 10, 12 years ago, why wasn't anything done 10, 12 years ago? That's all I'm trying to say. Or if there's nothing, there's no record of this, and now, or you're generalizing off something somebody said, which kind of happens also. I mean, Howard Stern was a guy that used to push this kind of stuff, and now, allegedly, now he says he's woke. Whatever what's going on there, I don't know. But saying so Russell Brand's situation, where if this happened, like I read somewhere about 2012 or 2013, then what happened in that year? Why was nothing done then? I mean, he's just a celebrity, right? He's an actor. He's not a police commissioner. He's not a mayor. He's nobody political. Why didn't you come forward if this is true? Yeah, this is what makes it look suspicious. Kind of like Brett Kavanaugh when he was going to run he was a Supreme Court justice. All those women came out. He did this to me when I was 16 and stuff. I mean, you're like 40, 50 something now. This looks highly motivated for some reason. We couldn't put our finger on it. And then it ends up being, was that even true? I don't think so. But that didn't stop what? There were 20 people pounding on the doors of the Supreme Court, remember? Or Congress. Of course, that was legal. January 6th ended up being that everybody there is a criminal in their eyes. But the people that were trying to destroy Congress during the Kavanaugh hearings, we don't even bring that up anymore. So you see how you're playing by two sets of rules? That's the bigger issue. But if you have an allegation, why wouldn't you say that right away? And you saw that also play out with Kavanaugh. We saw it play out also with Trump during his 2016 campaign. This is just crazy. Just honesty is the best policy, is what I say.
Yep, I agree. So let's say I want to become a police officer. What tips would you give me before I get into it?
You need your head examined if you want to be a police officer these days. 2023? This does not favor somebody to go do this. You got to be very brave because, that pendulum swings both ways. I was always I didn't want the pendulum to swing at me, but it'll swing back out. But that pendulum is like permanently stuck on a police officer. You're all over the spotlight unless you're protected, we'll say. Whether it be politically, whether it be by the boss, this is not something I would recommend to anyone. You want to do that, I'd say go be a lawyer. Being a lawyer, because a lawyer, you have different avenues you could get involved in, different things, or be involved in different fields. As a cop, I mean, you're already enemy off the bat. People hate you right away. They hate you. And there's no way out of that. People are going to like you, but what it seems is the small crowd that hates you has a bigger voice. And the one that speaks the loudest in this country rules the roast, it seems. So if they keep hammering the same fact over and over again, this cop X, Y, and Z did X, Y, and Z. We don't like him because he's bad. I mean, in New York City, they have a 50A disclosure, which is, so you go on there and in 50A, they had to put down any complaints that a cop has right to the last second and to put that up on a website. I mean, I'm up on there too. And you'll see that there's none with me. But the other people, you'll see it says 10 complaints, 20 complaints, 15, 5. They've been sued. they were found, there was a settlement, there's not a settlement, all this stuff is out there. Do you really want to put yourself out where you could work your whole life? You're almost about to retire. And then they make some outrageous claim that now, oh, well, you can't retire because we have to look into this. And guess what? This is 2023. So that claim has to be true because we hate cops, because that's how it operates, especially in New York City. I mean, I don't know how it is in other districts or counties, maybe kind of probably similar down here in Miami, but New York, that's how it works. There's a civilian complaint review board, and these people have the authority to try to say, I want to take 30 vacations days from you because my client,
You were just saying that it's not worth becoming a cop. It's 2023. Become a lawyer.
That's right.
stuff like that.
So I was saying, okay. So I was telling you, if I was a cop, if I was asked, should I be a cop in 2023? The answer is going to be no, especially in New York City because of the Civilian Complaint Review Board, the way they make complaints. I mean, look, in all honesty, I don't want to give anyone any crazy ideas, but in New York City, you could just run up on any cop and make any accusation. They'll take it serious. There was a time when this was laughed at, but not anymore because, New York City's gone woke. I mean, the NYPD is woke now. So they're going to take anything and try to use it against you unless you are protected. So if you're in the in crowd in New York City, if you're Eric Adams' lackey, then you're okay. But if you're not, and you're not part of that in crowd with him or the police commissioner or the chief of department, you're screwed. They'll bury you. And I don't know if you really want to put yourself out there. Being a lawyer, much better chance that you have different avenues to work with. And also you can go the federal route as a lawyer. And you could be in the police department as well as a lawyer, as an advisor, you could get a job. But as a cop, you're doing a lot of grunt work that could end up they use against you. So it's not something I recommend anymore, unless you go into a no-name town where nobody even, people respect you and, it's very close-knit. Maybe these rural towns, but not anything major. New York, LA, Chicago, stay away from there.
So to everyone listening, if you're thinking about becoming cop, now you got an opinion of a veteran. Maybe it's time to reconsider that. You probably still have time.
Yeah.
And okay, but now all the politics aside and all whatever is going on right now, do you think New York City is like the best city to be a cop in? Just because there's so many people, there's so much stuff going on, so much also like diversity of people from all around the world. So it seems like New York City could be the most interesting to do the job there. But what's your opinion on that?
New York City, NYPD's lost its luster. At one point, yes, it was probably, if you were a New York City police officer, anywhere you went in the world, people looked at you almost like a celebrity because it was such a prestigious position. It's no longer that. If I'm smart, and like I said, if you want to be on the job, you want to be a cop, I would tell you, the smaller the town, the better it is. If that's what you really want to do. If you want the glitz and glamour, you want to roll the dice, look, you could end up where you're almost like me, sitting in front of Congress, and you didn't even do anything wrong. Why? Because you're in the NYPD. And that's how things could roll downhill real quick. So, like I said, that was a job that had a lot of prestige to it. Technically speaking, if you were in Suffolk County, which is not that far away from New York City, it's in Long Island, you'd make a lot more money and have a lot less responsibility. And on top of it, you don't have all those eyes looking at you, looking to say, let me look this guy up. I can make a complaint. How many complaints does he have? You have all these idiots running around with their cell phone trying to do what do they call those?
TikToks?
They're not even, they call like they're trying to inspect the police and do these random things. I'm not one of those guys either. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. I'm more of in the moment, you capture people doing things. If you want to film cops from a distance, you're not in their face. That's what you should be. You could do it, even though the cops are filming themselves. But your video might shine a different light or a different angle on something. But to actually go in front of a cop and take I want your badge number, and I want to see, for no reason other than you're doing what they call an audit. That's the word, audit. Are you getting paid for that? I want to know, do those guys get paid? or you just have like a YouTube channel and you're looking for people to monetize you. I don't know what that's about. The audit. Did people run around doing audits in the 70s when the NAP Commission was around and Serpico and those guys? I don't remember that going on. It's all now. Now everybody wants to be Instagram and YouTube famous, I guess. I don't know.
It's all for views. There's not like much thought behind it just because, oh, I'm going to be so brave, record a TikTok, come up to a cop and start the audit.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense. The audit thing, I see that a lot in New York and the NYPD. I'm like, what is that about? You could just watch things unfold in the street and tape things from a distance, and you'll find out who was at the scene. Going to a precinct and just trying to film cops for no reason other than you're saying you're auditing an order on them, what is that accomplishing? You're not going anywhere with that other than you're trying to create a situation where they'll put their hands on you. That's the only thing I could think of, because this serves no purpose. You want to order people in the event of an action, meaning they're making an arrest, they're pulling someone over. Now you could kind of see if there's anything going on. But to just run up on a police precinct, I don't understand what anything's going wrong there. I don't get it. I've seen a lot of that in the last couple of months, and I can't put my finger on what that's really all about. Unless they're getting paid or looking for a lawsuit, meaning they hope the cop puts their hands on them, which Eric Adams will pay out, by the way. They seem to want to settle all those cases, but when it comes to mine, they want to put 4 lawyers on it and are trying to pump the brakes on everything. Isn't that convenient?
Yeah. I want to talk to you about 2, I would say, I wouldn't say. They are very controversial issues. So the first one is regarding New York City. What's going on with all those immigrants coming, illegal immigrants coming to the city? And, the city is just literally just housing them, paying for everything from the taxpayers' money. I read that for all the housing and all the other costs, it comes out to like $1 million a day. $1 million a day comes out to 30 millions in a month, and that's like over 100 billion in a year. 120 million in a year, all from taxpayer money. Honestly, my numbers could be lower than they actually are. Maybe, I don't know. But what's your take on that?
Well, what's happening there, obviously, is very political. It's a political thing. It starts on the first part would be on a federal level. Your president, Joe Biden, and his administration have a direct impact on this because they could just close the border. They could enforce immigration laws. There are federal laws on the book that you can't be here illegally. There's many things you could do Joe Biden is not doing. So he's the number one culprit in this, and his administration. They're not enforcing the law. They're not acting on this. And they're just saying, okay, so now you take a step back and say it's all in New York, right? So they go from Texas to New York. So Catholic Charities is waiting there, the Catholic Church, that is. They're sending buses to pick up these people. They're coming from Texas. So you're right. The governor has the right there to send them all over the place. So why should Texas have to deal with millions of people that they don't want, that they're being forced to take because your president is sleeping and is inactive right now? So he's busing them up to New York. And now when they're in New York, they want to hide behind this right to shelter law. Because in New York City, if you're homeless or you're in need, there's a decree that was put in. It's called right to shelter that states you have to shelter these people in a shelter. It never said anything about illegal immigrants. There's been no action on this for a long time. I mean, this was going on years ago. Nobody said right to shelter for illegal immigrants. So they're hiding behind this saying we have to because of this quote unquote law, which is not a law, it's a decree. And it was actually written that way in a court decision yesterday by a judge that right to shelter law is not, it's not a law on the books, and it's, you haven't shifted any illegal immigrants into the shelter for 18 months prior to this. So why is it all of a sudden a law now and it wasn't a law then? But in political standards, the governor has a little more say in here. So Kathy Hochul is the governor of New York. Politically speaking, uptown, the upper towns of New York. See, she won her election by 6 points. But let's say, now New York City is 8-1 or 7-2 Democrat. I don't think they're really smart. They just vote one way. They don't really care. A Democrat could be charged with a murder, a robbery and assault, he's running for office, they're going to vote him in. They used to say if Trump did, it's actually if a Democrat did New York City, the Democrat could be a convicted, multiple convicted time felon, they'll vote for him because he's a Democrat. It's just, I'm sorry. Unless I'm wrong, prove me wrong in the next election. But Kathy Hochul is the governor. If Kathy Hochul wants to ship the illegals around, she can. She's the one that says, I want them in New York City. And the surrounding counties in the upper part of the state, they, like Erie County, they shipped some illegals there, and a couple of rapes happened. So that head of the county in Erie County called Eric and said, no mas, not happening anymore. Eric said, okay. He tried Rockland County. That guy put him in court and said, the head of Rockland County, who was a cop with Eric Adams, unlike Eric Adams, who was an empty suit as a cop, this guy was a real cop. He was in the street. So he tells Eric, I'm going to go to court, and if you try anything stupid, I'm going to come there and strangle you. Because that's how we cops talk to each other. He got an injunction. There was no illegal sent to Rockland County. Everywhere he looks, he tries to be a bully. He says he calls everyone a xenophobe, all this little, that's Eric Adams' whole MO, because he was like that as a cop. And then when you fight him back, whether it's in the courts or they rule against him, he goes away. Like a little coward, he hides in the corner again. The big bully is gone. So those illegals are staying in New York City for one reason. Number one, what you say is a contract, there's a kickback, as Curtis Lever would say. That Roosevelt Hotel, as I'm learning, they're supposed to be like the housekeeping there, and they get there's a contract where they're supposed to get all these meals and all this kind of stuff, but it's being subcontracted. It's different people than you expect showing up there. And I know because I have a source there, and they're sending me a video, and there's an empty table with just empty plates and like napkins, and there's nobody sitting down. Where is all this stuff going? Where's your money going? I'll tell you where it is. It's a kickback. I guarantee you Eric Adams somewhere is making some money on this, because that man has been doing that his entire life from when he was a cop until now. But from back to the Kathy Hochul aspect, if you're running a state where you barely won by 6 points or 5 points, and you know that the upper regions of New York City or New York State are Republican, and Suffolk County, Nassau County, that's real close to being Republican. They have Republican congressmen and congresswomen. So would you want to risk shipping illegals to these counties where they will probably revolt and will remember this, and when the time comes to vote, all the Democrats would be out of power because they're going to vote. Those counties don't have all this corruption in it like New York City does. They're going to vote you out. So what's going to happen is Kathy Hochul had to come to a decision with Eric and say, well, Eric, you're a mayor. You're nothing to me. We're going to send the illegals to you. We're going to keep them in an area where, like I said, even if somebody was out on a camera professing they've murdered 100 people, but they're a Democrat, they'll never move them and they'll be in office forever. So keep them in a concentrated area where you're always going to be in power no matter what. Because if you start spreading them around the state, you're going to vote against Kathy Hochul. So Kathy Hochul is going to make the right political call, keep them one little area, New York City, where she'll win no matter what. If she's running a re-election in I believe 4 years or 6 years or 5 years, Kathy Hochul's going to get reelected. Why? New York City would vote for her no matter what, no matter how many illegals are there. If she sends them upstate, those counties that voted for her, like Albany or Syracuse, they might flip, because then they're going to say, oh, so you want to send them here? And there's your answer. That's why they're going to be in New York City. So it's a highly political thing. I see my friends out there, Curtis Lewer and John Tobacco and Scott Lebedo and John Matlin, they fought off the whole Staten Island thing. That's going back and forth in the courts. The people out in the street, I love seeing that. If I lived there, I'd be doing the same thing. They're protesting all this stuff, which I see NYPD acting a little bit, like wise guys with these protesters versus how they treat other protesters in other areas. So I don't know if Eric Adams or Ed Cabana are involved in that, but so You want to protest this, you want to make your voice heard, you want to lead the country in saying, no, we shouldn't have these illegals in this county. They're right. But as far as a political decision, Kathy Hochul is doing what's best for Kathy Hochul, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. I expect, in fact, New York City, I think, would probably get an even bigger flood of immigrants, illegal immigrants, just because, one, someone's profiting somewhere from this. In fact, they're trying to audit Eric Adams from the New York City Council because he doesn't want to show how the money or whatever, where the money's going from this, where the relief, but they got money for this. Where's it going? I don't know. Eric knows. He's not showing anyone. They want to know. That's a problem. You see how this works? Is everybody reading what's going on here? New York City needs to be smart. Eric Adams up for re-election in 2 years. If Mickey Mouse from Disney came out of nowhere as a cartoon and said, I am running against Eric Adams, that's who you vote for. But they won't. I guarantee you, I know how New York City is. And it's so corrupt that you'll see all kinds of shenanigans pulled. And we'll see how it happens. I think in a primary, he'll probably win a primary, even if it's close. And then it'll be a Republican where I hope Curtis Sliwa runs. I would back Curtis Sliwa in a heartbeat. But again, in that city, it's 7-2 or 8-1 ratio. And like I said, even if someone was convicted of a felony and they committed a felony on camera, these people will vote that guy in because, oh, he's a Democrat. It's just one party rule in New York. Expected to get worse. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And it's going to stay in a concentrated area.
Hopefully it gets better, but from what you say, I mean, I see with my own eyes, whatever is going on, it's just so ridiculous, all this corruption and everything. It's sad to see, like, especially since New York has always been like the global city, you know, if there's one city that everyone probably heard of in the world, it was New York City, very prestigious.
Shiny city on the a shining star in a city or something is the saying with that. I don't know. I grew up in it. I tell you, it's not what I remember. I mean, even Little Italy's reduced to a lot less than what it used to be, and you know they treat those people there terribly. So it's one thing after the other. You know, it's just one thing after the other.
So the second controversy I want to talk about was in 2020, what happened with George Floyd. We don't really have to go into the details, so whatever was right or wrong. My thing is, since you are a cop, you know, after this happened, they were defunding the police. And then I heard a podcast, I think it was from Jocko Willink, you know, he was like an ex-Navy SEAL, and he was saying that that's actually a worse move because the problem is that since maybe police doesn't have enough funding, they're not able to train the cops properly, you know, to maybe check their mentality in the sense of, you know, they don't have enough resources to be able to put the cops through the test to actually see how they will react in certain situations and train them even more, because if they were more trained, maybe those acts of violence and overusing power would not happen. So what is your take on that? Do you think defunding was the right move, or what's your perspective?
I don't think defunding the police is a right move. You want to at least keep the funds the way they were. I mean, look, you want to punish an entire country for the actions of a couple of people. That's kind of sick in my mind. I mean, look, you did what they did. They convicted those guys, wherever the case may be with that. That's where it should end. To now hold other jurisdictions responsible for something that these individuals did, that's like a gang mentality where it's a mob mentality. The mob rules over everything. Is that what this country was built on? I don't think so. And I don't know how you cut the funds off for policing, because you do need them for, you know, you need to train cops. They need to know what's going on. Things are always evolving. You know, the people on the street don't just sit there and go, well, we've always been arrested for these things, so we're just going to keep doing it. No, they're getting smart. And then they have people on the inside. You might even have corrupt cops helping them. You might have some police commissioners helping them. So you need the funds to keep that at a bare minimum going. Taking this away, who's going to suffer? That law-abiding citizen is going to suffer. And I just think it's like the planned collapse of the country is what's happening here. But the people, once again, some of these people are asleep. Some of them are very asleep. They don't want to watch anything. They don't want to do anything. They just want to have a beer and play baseball. That's coming to an end. I'm telling you right now. You think it's all fun and games. It's coming to an end if you're going to do that. You need to be smart and think on your feet, just like I had to. I mean, I remember I was out there first day as a cop. I was like, what the hell did I get myself involved in? And then I just adapted to what was going on. And I always adapt. That's the way life is. You must adapt to each situation and every punch that's thrown your way. Otherwise, we're going to just sit there and say, punch me in the face until I don't have one left. You don't do that either. So I see that as the issue. Like I said, I don't think it was right that the whole country, every police department was suffering for the acts of a few individuals. I'm not into this mob mentality stuff or, I'm in a group with 10 people. So one of the people in the group massacred somebody while they were, home. So now the other 9 gentlemen have to pay the sins. But no, it doesn't work that way. I'm sorry. The people that did that, they paid them the heavy price. A couple of guys are in prison now. That's it. Why does this now focus on, well, I remember I was a cop and like, well, they're going to protest in New York. Why? What does this have to do with what happened in Minneapolis? I can't even drive there. You know how far away it is from New York City? But somehow it became New York City's issue. It became Los Angeles issue. Obviously, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of funding involved in having these guys organized to go around and create chaos. That's what happened after that, right? So now you're saying this happened, so let me have the right to burn down your town. Because how did that work out? By the way, there was a building in Portland, there's a federal courthouse, I believe, that they tried to burn down with active federal agents in there. They were alive. They were in there breathing. And they were surrounded by these anarchists. I don't see them being treated the way you treat people that were waving a flag on the lawn on a certain day in D.C. 2 years ago. Just want to point that out.
That's another thing, I feel like people are just starting to lose their rationality and just think like a smart person, to say the least, but
They live in a different time. It's a different...
yeah. Unfortunately,
I mean, I'm from the 80s. I grew up, I was born in the 80s. I'm only 41 years old right now. And I feel like I've lived 2 or 3 different lifetimes where things are just changing so quick on you from where it was.
Yep.
And that was basically what it was. You want to bring back the 80s. That was the magic of Trump. Make America Great Again is bring back Reagan, the Reagan times of how the economy was good. I remember my family, we only profited in the 80s. Business was great. A lot of people made a lot of money. Reaganomics, it was called, right? And Trump was doing the same thing. But no, you have to come and destroy it with all this other nonsense in the middle. And I hate to go back to politics, but but that's what you've done. That's what I kind of saw Make America Great Again as. It's actually Reagan's line was Make America Great Again. So that's the mirror. That's what you people saw. Everything from Reagan till Trump was a disaster. Whether name the president, everything that was wrong happened in that time period. From war to there was a lot of war. There's a lot of war. The Patriot Act. You had the Obama years where everything became about race and gender and all this other this stuff was never around. Other countries laugh at us, and it's down to politics. They're laughing now. I mean, you got a guy that can't even stand up there and doesn't know where he is half the time. And, I don't know what they're pumping this guy up to keep him up, but this guy needs to just fade off into the sunset and go retire, enjoy his life. He had 60, but I've noticed that in politics, these guys just don't know when to quit.
Yep.
Kind of like Michael Jordan retired, but then he came back and he played terrible on the Washington Wizards. I don't know if anyone remembers that. He did not retire as a Chicago Bull. Michael Jordan played his final 2 years out of retirement on the Wizards and was a shell of what he was. I don't know if anyone remembers this. The line is when you leave and don't come back. And some guys just, I don't know. I mean, I could use a lot of examples of people in sports that just don't know when to retire. Same thing in politics. Mitch McConnell's like 90, and I think he had a mini stroke on camera.
No, not just one. It happened like
Yeah.
a few times already.
I mean, there should be a rule or a law. You physically can't do this. You can't do this. This is like, Mitch, you've been there forever. Maybe you want to like sit on a kayak or something on a boat, or you be in the water somewhere and enjoy what you've done in your life. Not, you're still there. You're 90. What is it you're clinging to, Power?
Yep, probably, most likely.
That's why it was always a rule in the NYPD where you have to retire when you're 63, right? You're forced out. I say everything across the board is 20 years. Why? What are you doing hanging on in your 50s or your 60s to a position on a job other than you're profiting, or there's something you're not being able to put your finger on? The only thing that I understand that people do it for is divorce. They were divorced. They have children. Okay. But, a guy like, these generals that are in the military forever, and then they become highly political. And then you find out when you look at their financials, they're worth millions of dollars. How? You were a public servant. How did that happen? People don't ask these things. 20 years. That's all you have as a public official. In Congress, 2 terms. In the Senate, 2 terms. The president, 2 terms. That's it. This lifetime, the only thing that's lifetime is a judge in the Supreme Court. Other than that, how has everything else become like a lifetime appointment? Because, it's very easy to stay in office as a senator if you've been there more than 1 term. Second term you're in, then you're in for life almost. It's like impossible to unseat the guy. So why are you there for more than 2 terms, though? What is it? What is it that you really, what's your objective? What's your goals? Guy's 90 years old. He can't even, the guy had a stroke on TV. I mean, that should be an alarm. Guy's done. I mean, help this guy. Same thing with Joe Biden. Same thing with Dianne Feinstein. They're in their 80s and 90s. This is like alarming to me that people want to stick around past their prime for what? And they do the same thing in the military and the police department. I say make it 20 years in any military or police department is your max. That's all you can stay for. I don't care what rank you are. You retire on the spot. You want to come back as the head of it? You're a civilian, and even as a civilian, you only have X amount of years that you could do. You can't be there forever. Otherwise, what you're seeing in NYPD and in New York City today, that's going to happen everywhere. All that corruption you have on top, because they've been there forever.
Yep. So what we were saying, 2 things. The first one, like between Reagan and Trump, all this time, I think, especially now, people and just governments start worrying about stuff that doesn't really matter and doesn't push the needle forward, just like keep us busy with some bullshit, instead of focusing what actually matters, which is the economy, which is business, how we live. And then the second thing is what you said with the age. For example, retirement, they're forcing you to stop working. However, for government, there's multiple people that are over the retirement age, but somehow they can still do even probably more responsible job than if you were, I don't know, a store clerk. You retire 60 something, you got to retire. So tell me, how did you meet Roger Stone?
Well, I admired Roger from a distance for a long time, and I happened to meet him on Instagram back in 2018. I saw his page. I saw that people were writing very derogatory things about him and his wife and his family. So I wrote a few comments underneath there defending him, and he actually reached out. He DM'd me, and on Instagram he said, "Hey, thanks for what you wrote. It's I'm getting shellacked out here for no reason." And we struck up a friendship there. And then he said, "Look, I have a place in Manhattan, and I'd like you to, when I come back to New York, I'd like you to have dinner with me and Nidia." And I met him and his wife, Nidia, and that we really became close right then and there. Roger's Sicilian like me. We have a lot in common. I mean, if you're around Roger, he's the greatest. I tell you one thing, he's the greatest mind I've ever met. I mean that he's really smart. I've never seen a guy that smart. He's very on his toes about anything, not just politics. Remember, Roger's not just, the guy who's friends with Trump. I mean, this guy has gotten 5 presidents elected. He's been involved in 5 successful presidential campaigns. Nixon, Reagan twice, Bush the father, Bush the kid, and Trump. That's the 5 campaigns he's been involved in. Not to mention all the numerous senators and congressmen and mayors and even sheriffs he's gotten elected. The guy is a genius. He's brilliant. But I understand that people think he's a flamboyant guy and he's said some crazy things and they didn't like what happened. They try to put him in some scandals, and to this day, they still hit this guy for nonsense. I'm there all the time with him. I know his family very well. Edie is almost like an aunt to me. His kids are great. One is a nurse. The other is a cop like me. I see Roger for Roger, not the guy everyone else sees. He's a great guy who's not only an honest guy, but as a friend, he's kind of been like, he's more like family to me. And the advice he gives you and the things he tells you, and he tries to, bring something to the table because he's telling you, look, he's giving you other angles that maybe you don't see. That's what he's very good at. He's brilliant. I mean, this guy could get anyone elected to anything. He's politically a genius. He could see moves ahead of time. But unfortunately, his own trial, right, when he was persecuted, I was there for that. And that was a complete setup. And I realized then I was really questioning if I was on the right team anymore. Because I didn't do that as a cop. I didn't see anybody in New York City doing it. I see that now. But he was railroaded in a way which, I don't know. I don't know what I could say about that. That was the worst case it's the worst court case I've ever seen in my life. And I was involved in many with my own. I saw it rigged one way. No matter what defense, no matter what you argued, none of it mattered. You got struck down because he was Roger Stone. And that's where you learn about guilt by association.
Yep.
All this, guilt before innocence. You have to prove it. And they were just, and then the witnesses that came up there, they were lying off that. I mean, to this day, I remember being there. I saw one guy in person. I was like, I want to jump from the back of the room and tell his lawyers, hey, this guy just said X, Y, and Z. I just saw the email. That's not what it was. It was like one-sided. You had to be there to witness it. It was like, oh my God. And the sentencing was worse. I remember at the sentencing, the judge was referring to Roger as if he was Donald Trump. She mentioned it twice when she was like castigating. I mean, it was ridiculous. It went on for like an hour. You lied to cover up for Russian collusion, but that's not that wasn't what he didn't lie about anything. He didn't cover anything up. So it was like, what am I watching here? And I saw a man, and it was very hard to try to keep the entire family together. And I was very positive for them. And I was there for them at a time when nobody wanted to be. There was very little, there was very few people. And by the way, President Trump and Roger, other than before this whole trial and everything, they didn't speak until the day he was commuted from his sentence in July in 2020. And that was on camera. So they didn't speak for that long. There was no in-between. There was no gophers. There was nothing like that. He wasn't talking to him. The lawyers wouldn't let him do it, and it was just not going to happen because he's being, prosecuted for something they're saying that he's involved in or whatever they were trying to say. So they didn't speak. So this whole thing of, another guilt by association campaign they're doing on MSNBC, it's all a fugazi. He didn't speak to him at all. The next time he spoke to him was he saw him and he bumped into him at a buffet line in Mar-a-Lago in late December. And that was the second time he saw him inside of like 2 years. They spoke very briefly when he commuted his sentence, and then again in late. And then after that, I believe he didn't speak to him until well after March of 2021 or something. So this is the time frame. So for anybody who keeps assuming things, this is what I know. I mean, I was there. So I saw a guy that they literally took and tried to break in every way possible. And I admire him because he had a lot more strength than, let's say, I would have. I mean, I went through my own investigation, as you know, with everything, because they try to guilt by association campaign. And he took it a lot better than, let's say, I would. Because I was literally, there were times where I was just ready to put my fist through a wall because I knew I didn't do anything, but yet I was being, because I saw it before with him. And now I said, how did I end up in this scenario and I didn't do anything? At least with Roger, I could understand they had 4 different people lying to be witnesses in his case. In my case, you didn't have any witnesses, you had nothing. There was nothing there other than, we don't like your friend and we think you're guilty because of this. That's all they had. It's a theory that was never proven. And that's what I'm saying. Roger's a great guy. Roger's my friend for life. As you know, when you're Sicilian, it's usually like that. That's how we are. And he's loyal, and I'm loyal, and we're loyal to our friends in our little circle that we have. And that's how I see it. People may not like him. You just don't know Roger the way I do. You don't sit there and have the dinners and we go out and all laugh with our friends and the jokes he makes. He's a great guy. But some people are going to take a shot because that's just the way it is. I understand how it works. It's people are envious. People are jealous. People are not your friends. People are fugazis. People are just cloud chasing. That's not me or Roger. So, and that's what I take it. I think hopefully his strategy or something he thinks of or what he's been saying lately in the political sphere penetrates through, let's say, President Trump's head as he's running for office again right now. And, our guy could pull through and somehow get back in the White House. And then maybe things will change, hopefully for the better. And we could have some answers for the last 7 years that we've been basically persecuted for no reason.
Yeah, our fingers crossed. And it's also amazing that you have such a good relationship with Roger. I'm sure he's also like a mentor to you, with all his experience and deep understanding and just like so much wisdom. Like this guy has literally been working with
the wise
presidents.
Man.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
A wise man. He's a wise man.
There's a lot to learn from him. Hopefully you will be able to get him on the show.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yes. I will do my best.
We're going to get some wisdom for the viewers as well. So now going back to New York, all the positive stuff. Now tell me, I'm from Poland. New York, it's always been like a dream. I had the pleasure to visit like 3 times. What are the top spots to visit?
Pizza needs to be number one. So if you're in Manhattan, I would definitely go John's on Bleecker Street. That would be the number one place. Their pie is unbelievable. You have to sit down, so hopefully there's no line in there. Then you go right down the street. You're on Bleecker, you go to Joe's Pizza. That place is unbelievable. You can go, I would go to, let's say, Manhattan's got a lot of places. I like a few other places, but then I would probably go to Brooklyn. I know a few people there. Table 87 on 4th Avenue. Actually, there's one on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, and there's one on 3rd Avenue, Table 87. They were on, I don't remember, on a Shark Tank. They have a coal-fired pizza. The pizza's unbelievable. You can actually buy it frozen, too. It's just by a slice. Okay? The pizza's much better when you get it in person.
Of course.
You want squares? Da Vinci's on 18th Avenue. Unbelievable Sicilian pizza. Probably the best out of the best. Trust me, you'll know what I'm talking about. J&V, 2 blocks away. That's another unbelievable pizzeria. It's been there since the 60s. Everybody tells you to go to Spumoni Gardens. Their food is really good. The pizza, I'm a guy that says, would I go there? Would I have this slice? Yeah, but I would definitely go to Da Vinci's 20 times over before I would have pizza at Spumoni Gardens. Not to say Spumoni Gardens is bad. It's just I prefer Da Vinci's for whatever reason. So you could go to Spumoni Gardens. Bay Ridge has a few places. Nino's is unbelievable. You go up to the Bronx. I've been to a place called Pugsley Pizza. It's right in Little Italy there in the Bronx. It's off of there. It's an old school joint. What I mean is it's an old horse stable that became a building like a pizzeria. They built it, they had the rear end. They still kind of have the elements of that. It's been there forever. Those guys, I know them. They're very good. I love their pizza. I used to go there all the time. I was in the Bronx. That's a spot you have to hit. I used to go to a couple places in Queens or close to Howard Beach. We have New Park Pizza. That's you have to go there. There is what was that pizzeria? It's right
That's
across the
already a lot
street.
of spots.
There's a
People on
lot of
one trip, I don't think they can hit
these are
all of
just
them.
this is I'm telling you where to go. And then, Staten Island was I lived there. You have to go to Ciro's Pizza, Joe and Pat's. That's you have to go to there and Staten Island. There was also there was a Nino's out there also, I believe, in Staten Island. Also excellent. Palermo Pizza, that's in South Shore. That's also excellent. Excellent. Now, when you go into other areas, pastries, cannolis, my
I love
favorite,
cannolis. My
all-time
girlfriend too.
favorite, because I'm from 18th Avenue, and they're kind of related to me. And that would be Villa Batti, the best cannoli cream you're ever going to get because it comes from Sicily. I was there. I was basically born there. I was born around the block, so I grew up around the Alimo family who owns it. They're excellent people. They actually have a place also in Virginia. You have to go to Villa Batti. They're world renowned. That's the number one place. Go to Little Italy. Go see my friend Baby John at Cafe Palermo. He's the cannoli king. They call him that for a reason. He also has a restaurant across the street. I would go in there if you want to eat. It's called the Pasta Boss, right across the street. Unbelievable. This guy he has a world-renowned chef in there. He makes unbelievable plates. You have to see. It's like some kind of special sauce he puts on the pasta. You got to go to Pasta Boss, okay? And Cafe Palermo. If you want the best cappuccinos I ever had, up the block, Cafe Napoli. I used to hang out there all the time. All the time. I used to go there. That was my favorite spot. Cafe Palermo, Cafe Napoli. Napoli would have the cappuccinos. He also makes these excellent dishes. I go there for lunch and have like the seafood there. Unbelievable. Trust me, go in there, tell me you know me. They'll take care of you. And then finally, in the Upper East Side in Manhattan, there's only one place that if you're a conservative, even if you're a Democrat, you'd be welcome there. Just don't wear the hats at the bar. The Beach Cafe. My friend Dave Goodside owns it. Tell Dave you know me. He's going to tell you that you have to try one thing in there, and that's the Stone Burger. The Stone Burger, of course, we all know who it's named after. And the burger it's a burger with a fried egg on top. Now, his meat, and you have the burger, he is something about the burgers at Dave's place. He has top-end stuff, so he's always going for the best meat that there is. So each time you get it, you're going to say, wow, this tastes better than the last time I had it. If you have 2 Stone Burgers, the third one's on Dave, but you have to eat the 2 in front of him. You can't say, oh, I want 3 Stone Burgers to go. That's the deal over there if you go to the Beach Cafe. It also has a nice place outside. You can eat outside the place. You can eat inside the place. And, of course, there's drinks. There's espresso there. That's where you want to be. It's on East 70th and 2nd Avenue. Beach Cafe, Upper East Side. Tell Dave you know me. That's a good rendition of my little rounds of where I went in Brooklyn and Manhattan as far as the pizzeria goes. Also, I have a pizzeria you should go to. It's an all-time favorite. If you go in Brooklyn and Prospect, it's called Smiling Pizza. It's on 9th Street and 7th Avenue. Go in there, you tell them you know me as well. It's that's a place I grew up in. I had a sentimental value because I know the owner is very close to my father, and I spent my whole childhood in there. And his pizza is also very good. His sauce is excellent. Try the chicken parm. You won't regret it.
So now all of you heard, you have a whole ass culinary trip around the boroughs of New York.
Yeah.
And they all checked by the veteran and the food aficionado too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so tell me, what is next for Sal Greco?
Well, we're going to see how this lawsuit proceeds forward. As you know, I do have that litigation, like I stated, against the New York City Police Department with facts of this case that keeps growing by the day. I mean, I was terminated because they used that provision of Patrol Guide, which is the book that governs the NYPD. The provision stated that you cannot wrongfully or knowingly associate with someone who is reasonably believed to have engaged in or likely to have engaged in criminal activity. For them, they're stating that For me, it was Roger Stone. They didn't like my political affiliations. They didn't like that I'm affiliated with MAGA. They didn't like that I know Trump, but none of that stuff. They hated that stuff. That's what they charged me with. They didn't like, they said I was Roger's security. I never was. They said it was uncompensated security. They made it up. So then a couple of months after I sued them, when they finally terminated me, they brought Cardi B to the police academy. And Cardi B, who's a criminal, she was hobnobbing with all the cops, all the supervisors taking pictures. That's in direct violation of the same rule that I violated, they say, no? Sounds like it to me. So their police commissioner at the time said that she didn't know who invited her or how she got there. The mayor came out and said, we don't discard people, and she was invited there, and too bad he wasn't invited there. So this case is very interesting just on that fact alone. But going forward, we now have a new police commissioner, Ed Cabano, I keep mentioning for a reason. He himself is involved with criminality. His brother is a criminal. His brother is a convicted criminal. He was a sergeant in the NYPD. He was fired because he was a criminal, okay? He wasn't charged at that point. He wasn't convicted in that case. He was convicted in another case a few years later, okay? So then they're involved in this place called Controversies in the Bronx on Commerce Avenue there. They're involved with a character named Jimmy Rodriguez Jr. This guy, he was arrested in the late 90s. He tried to run over his wife. Took a couple of days for him to turn himself in. And all he ever does is open up his places, and there's numerous articles in every place this guy opens that he's involved in narcotics. There's narcotics in and out of the place. There's always drugs. There's shootings. There's all these people. The MLB baseball players weren't allowed in his place for a couple of years. It was actual rule. He's hosted people like Fidel Castro. He's hosted people like Hillary and Bill Clinton. All these Democrats seem to go to his place. Seems like one political party goes to one place, and that's Controversies. So Controversies, though, is owned by Ed Caban's other brother, who was also on the job, Richard Cabana, retired. So Caban is tied to a place that's known to have a guy that was involved in criminal activity by the book, and also narcotics that's flown out of every place he's ever had. In fact, he's on YouTube by some guy named Cuban Master or something. He actually stated that it was a cocaine buffet in his old place, Jimmy Bronx Cafe. And now they're all situated at Controversies, weekly, nightly, whatever you want to call it, hanging out with felons every day. Eric Adams, Ed Caban, the police commissioner, the chief of department, Jeffrey Madry, numerous other cops that are all associated with all this little crew here. And they're all pictured with felons, hanging out with the guy who owns the place, the co-owns the place with Richard Caban. Ed Caban is there. There should be SLA questions going on, SLA, because you need a liquor license. And I don't know if Ed Caban's involved in that. So my case is grown and sprawled because I have evidence that the police department went to Controversies, and it was in the magazine, the NYPD magazine, that the police commissioner that was there, that's on my lawsuit, Keyshawn Sewell, who left the police department, resigned, she's still in a lawsuit. So she'll have to answer for, did you even know about this place? Because your magazine, where you're now the police commissioner, stated the NYPD was there having a party. So you're having a party at a drug-prone location / felon hangout. And what was I terminated for again? So you see how the case is sprawling and has many different aspects. They could go in many different directions. So if Eric would like to talk about things, and maybe the law department wants to call my lawyer, we could talk. Or we could end this where if it's going to go to trial, Eric Adams will be on that stand in the hot seat in a year where it's probably going to be an election year. And if you're ready to go the whole route, Eric, that's not a problem, because I'm sure everyone would love to know about how you are allowing your police commissioner and your police department to hang out with felons in front of you, but you fired me for saying that my friend is a felon, even though they're pardoned. and that my relationship with the NYPD would be corrosive if I continued as a cop because of it. But your police commissioner prior never fired me. No, but she fired me. You never fired her for allowing Cardi B at the police academy. And now your current police commissioner is basically involved in a drug-prone location where you hang out every day with him, and there's felons all around you, and I guess that's okay. How does this work, Eric? Is it only be one standard? There can only be one rule. There can't be one rule for Eric and one rule for everyone else. And only Eric Adams can answer this question. So that's the main focus for me, is what's going to happen here. And I'm looking to expose everyone that's involved, because this kind of behavior, this kind of stuff needs to stop. It's a double standard. That can't go on. And then, of course, my case led me in front of the January 6th committee. Thank you, NYPD. They used Fugazi subpoenas. They used an administrative subpoena. They wrote narcotics. Then they admitted that I was never on narcotics. I don't know where the narcotics came from, because if you don't understand this out there, narcotics is the gateway to all your records. They could survey you. They could look for your Easy Pass, or not your Easy Pass, your, well, down here it would be different. It's not called Easy Pass, but it's like your toll records where you go with your car, your phone records, your internet records, your social media records, all your records, if they claim you're on narcotics. The people that are investigating me, they're also in my lawsuit. They're in other lawsuits, and they did the same thing there. So we have a problem. It seems like there's a pattern in the New York City Police Department that Ed Caban runs, and the city that Mayor Eric Adams runs. Corruption seems to be the common trend here. And we're going to see where all of that leads. So I think that's one interesting area people need to keep their eyes on, is my case. Where you can, if you want to help me out and support me, you go to salgreco.com. There's a donate button there. There's also merchandise. I'm selling merchandise. It'd be nice if people start buying some shirts and seeing what I have there. There's mugs. There'll be other things in the future, but, we're trying to build my brand here, and maybe in the future, I'll be sitting down and doing one of these shows myself, maybe even for a day in Miami. I'm aiming towards that direction. I'm also love this highlight league I keep telling you about, which is where I met Ben. And the highlight league is something I have a vision in I see a future in, and I hope I could help move this league, forward. I recently brought Roger for the first time there, and he actually was invited for the second time that he was there. He was invited by the owners of the team. So it's a sport I see growing that has a lot of potential, and I hopefully can have a hand in helping highlight move forward, because it's a fun few hours that you spend. It's a fast sport, and it's a great time there. Obviously, everyone that sees me go there, I'm in love with this cafecito business. It's not espresso, it's cafecito. It's a different thing, but it's very, like, you have one, you need two, you need three, you just keep going. You have to stop yourself, actually, from having cafecitos. And the food, there's good food there. There's a good atmosphere. People, they're all happy. They want to take pictures with people. Even the players, after the game, come out and greet the fans. It's a great place to be. Now you can bet on it through DraftKings. So there's a future in highlight, and maybe be a future with Sal Greco in highlight. So that's another avenue I'm looking at. And you never know what the future may hold, Ben.
Yeah, 100%.
I like to get, like I said, I like to get involved in many different things. I like to have a hat in many different arenas, and we'll see where I hang it finally,
Okay, Sal, so the name of the podcast is Better Globally. We explore art of becoming better in every way, in health, life, relationships. So according to you, what's your number one tip to become better globally?
I think if you stay true to yourself and be honest, that's the only way forward. People can see when you're a fugazi right away. You need to be honest and straightforward. I was always like that with people. Some people might take it the right way. Some people may take it the wrong way. And others are just fugazi themselves, and you'll have to navigate through that. But to be better in life is to be honest and be true to yourself. And that will reverberate around everyone around you. And if you stay positive and always have a good outlook on life and keep that positivity around you, it'll grow. You'll grow, and everyone around you will grow, and it'll have people gravitate towards you. So that's how you would work on an overall scale, especially if it's going to be a global, if you want to do impact the globe, we'll say. And that'd be the perfect way to even market yourself or market your friends. Because it's life's not about you. It's about the people around you. You always want to make other people better. So it's like, that's how I see it. Me winning or whatever my case, settling, whatever the case may be, it's not just for me. Yeah, there's a lot that happened there, but you know something? What about that guy behind me that's happened? This happened to them. That's the whole point. You want to wake everyone up around you. It's like God always, if you read the Bible, and this common trend in the Bible is always believe in God, listen to God. But God never said, God is almighty. So you would think God could just come down and do it himself. But that never happens, does it? It's up to you, because he wants to see everybody else be better than the next person and be the best of themselves. And that's how you affect the world globe. Be the best of who you can be and how you can affect others around you that do the same. And never say, I'm better than this guy, I'm not better than that guy. Just be better than who you think you could be or who you were. And just keep going up the chain. And you'll affect everything around you, and hopefully affect even somebody maybe that's, miles and miles and miles away from us right now.
Okay, one last thing. I have a little gift for you. So now I'm making this a tradition. Everybody that comes on a podcast gets a gift. So here's one.
That's a gift.
Token of appreciation from me to you. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to see what this is.
Let's see.
Seems like a book.
Seems like it.
Meditations, Marcus Aurelius.
You ever heard about Marcus Aurelius?
I don't know who it is. This is the first I'm seeing this.
Okay, have you ever heard about Stoicism, the philosophy?
Yes.
He's like I wouldn't say he's the founder of this whole philosophy, but he's like the greatest minds when it comes to this. I know you are going through a lot, and I think like Stoicism and Stoic mentality will help you get through those turbulent times, just like I wrote in your dedication.
That's it.
So I definitely recommend you read it. It's honestly, this is the greatest book I think I read. I haven't even finished it, but honestly, it already touched me after reading a couple pages. So I hope it helps. And yeah, thank you for coming on for the show. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. It was an honor to be here. Follow A Day in Miami, by the way, on Instagram. And my Instagram at the Sal Greco, same on Twitter.
I was about to ask, exactly.
And Truth Social at Head of the Table. And follow me on salgreco.com. You'll see all my adventures as I move around life. And, we'll see how fast and how slow, or I can slow things down or speed things up in my life.
All right. Thank you guys for listening, for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next ones, and see you soon.